Vilnius, the capital of Lithuania, is located 200 miles south of Riga. Lithuania is the most radical of the three Baltic republics. Its unilateral attempt to break away from the USSR in the spring of 1990 led Gorbachev to impose severe economic sanctions. Lithuania is firmly committed to its self-proclaimed independence. It's already begun to have its own currency printed in the Federal Republic of Germany. The little country, with barely 4 million inhabitants, has embarked on a perilous course to test its strength against that of the giant Union. In the Municipal Museum of Vilnius, there's an exhibition about the Gulag. That's the name of the network of concentration camps that Stalin had built throughout the Soviet Union, and in which millions of Soviet citizens perished, amongst them many thousands of Lithuanians. Like Latvia, Lithuania thinks of itself as an inmate in the Soviet imperial prison. It's attempting to make its escape, but when and if it will succeed is still uncertain. 100 years ago, the old city of Vilna was known as the Jerusalem of Lithuania. Nearly half of its population were Jews. Spiritually, culturally, and politically, Vilna was the center of Jewish life for all of Eastern Europe. 80 synagogues, Yiddish theaters, schools, universities, and publishing houses informed and dominated the flourishing cultural life of Vilna. Hardly a trace remains. Now there are scarcely 15,000 Jews left in Lithuania. 100,000 disappeared in the Holocaust. Jews no longer live in the ancient street that bears their name. In the Municipal Museum of Vilnius, very little can be learned about the famous Jewish community of former days. From the ritual objects on display, from the pictures and books, one cannot learn that Vilna has been the birthplace of Hasidism, an important mystical movement, and that it had been a leading center of the Jewish labor movement and of Zionism. And it was here, too, that Yiddish literature attained its greatest heights. After the German takeover in June 1941, a ghetto was established in this neighborhood. The mass execution of Jews was immediately put into effect, in Lithuania as elsewhere, with active local support. But in the Vilna ghetto, a resistance movement was organized, and a group of military partisans carried out operations using a network of underground tunnels. With a flick of the wrist, this woman shows us how very close we are to the past. The Jews were disposed of in Lithuania in the same way as they were everywhere else in the Soviet Union. They were taken to the woods near their homes and shot. The memorial at Panarai contains no mention of the Jews. The Star of David, placed here in commemoration by private individuals, is repeatedly removed. The only Holocaust museum in the Soviet Union was erected here in 1989 as a private initiative. The caretaker of the Holocaust Museum lives here. He's a so-called refusenik who's tried in vain for 15 years to obtain permission to emigrate. The reason? He's an active Zionist. Here he shows us the trophies of his long fight with bureaucracy. The organization called Tkuma is small but canny after decades of political infighting against tough bureaucrats.
Здесь два плаката с демонстрации в Вильнюсе, с митинга, который имел название «Марш жизни». Вильнюс был центром сионизма.
At one time, Vilnius was the center of Zionism. Maxim Gorky once wrote to Lenin, "Zionism is a tremendous national liberation movement that deserves our respect and support." Unfortunately, Zionism later came to be identified with fascism in the Soviet Union. Nowadays, Zionism is rising from the ashes. Not that it ever totally disappeared. Officially, it ceased to exist, but it was still there, all right, in the hearts of the people. Now there is the Tkuma Society, which is basically Zionist. Its central concern is the restoration of national self-consciousness. In addition, we want to propagate a new image of Israel as our homeland and offer assistance to all Jews who want to emigrate to Israel.
The Tkuma newspaper published an article by the author Grigory Kanovich called The Jewish Daisy. Kanovich writes, "Lovers ask the daisy, she loves me not. But we ask the Jewish daisy, go or stay or go."
Потому что, надо прямо сказать, ситуация напоминает немножко библейскую ситуацию, если вы помните.
You know, this situation reminds me of the Bible, when Moses led his people through the wilderness for 40 years until all the slaves among them had died off. It took 70 years for the slaves in the Soviet Union to die off and make way for a generation of free men and women, and now they are emigrating. Each extra bit of freedom that the Jews receive nowadays only motivates them to emigrate.
И я думаю, что вообще, так сказать, вот то ощущение свободы, которым сейчас живут многие евреи, и понуждает их сделать выбор вообще все-таки в пользу отъезда.
Grigory Kanovich, raised in Lithuania and evacuated to Kazakhstan during the war, has been writing novels and plays about the fate of Lithuanian Jews since 1948. He's a representative to the People's Congress of the USSR.
Но самое главное, мне кажется, это то, что подрублены все корни еврейской.
The decisive factor is that the Jews have been torn away from their roots and from the nationalistic Jewish way of life. If you plant something in asphalt, it doesn't matter how much you water it, nothing will grow. Not even a daisy.
Поливать этот асфальт, если, в общем-то, я не знаю, его удобрять, все равно на асфальте даже ромашка не взойдет, понимаете?
Under this pavement lies the great Jewish cemetery of Vilna. It was raised to make room for the Sports Palace just 20 years ago. On the day before Yom Kippur, the Kaddish, or prayer for the dead, can be heard at the only surviving Jewish cemetery. This is the burial place of the great Gaon of Vilna, one of the founders of Hasidism, the mystical strain of Judaism. Jewish gravestones can be found everywhere in Vilnius, here, for example, in the wall of a schoolyard. When asked if he knows what kind of stones these are, the boy says, "Of course I do. These are stones from gypsy graves, and this here, that's the star of the gypsies." Gravestones here too, in the staircase leading up to the offices of labor union bosses. Only one of Vilna's 80 synagogues has survived, but it easily accommodates the few active members of the Jewish community. It's not even full on Kol Nidrei, the evening service preceding the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. In Lithuania, as in Latvia, the Zionist tradition is still vital, but it's a tradition in which religious devotion plays but a small part. This building formerly housed the YIVO, the Institute for Jewish Language and Culture, which was founded in 1925. 50 years ago, the YIVO moved its headquarters to New York. Its collection of books, magazines, photographs, diaries, and films document the lost world of Judaism in Eastern Europe. Today, the facades are being renovated, but the old Vilna cannot be restored. The wave of religious and cultural renewal that's at work in Moscow, Leningrad and Riga seems to have left Vilnius untouched, but not completely. There's a small organization of dauntless optimists who refuse to give in to the dominant attitude of no future. The Jewish Cultural Society is convinced that it will be possible to renew the Jewish community. They want to raise money to renovate the old Jewish Culture Center. The model has already been constructed. They also want to re-establish the once famous Yiddish Theatre of Vilna. At one time it was world famous, but that was long ago.
In the 18 years of our existence, the Filak Company has experienced many different kinds of Soviet anti-Semitism. Now, in spite of everything, we want to keep on working hard to spread our Yiddish culture. It's our heritage. It's what our ancestors lived for throughout the centuries in Lithuania, in Poland, in the Western Ukraine, and in White Russia. We love Yiddish culture because we've grown up with it. We've absorbed it with our mother's milk. Our biggest problem is that our audience, the people who know and love Yiddish culture, are emigrating, and quite a few of the members of our ensemble are planning to leave the country too.
A dance for Jewish teenagers. The music's made in Israel, and none of the dancers would dream of spending the rest of their lives in the Soviet Union.
I want to go away to my homeland, to Israel. Yes, I want to go away too. This is not my home.
There's no future here. Perestroika won't help. It won't get much better.
I want to go away too. All of us here want to leave.
Who's to say that the anti-Semitic persecution of the 1950s won't return? Gorbachev won't be around forever.
Anti-Semitic persecution is going on all around us.
And there are no opportunities here. I'm going to Israel.
Israel's the only place to go.
This apartment is almost empty. A mother is packing up her few belongings to emigrate with her child.
We are going to Israel. I want to live with my own people in my homeland. I don't want my little son to have the kind of problems I have had here. I want him to be able to grow up like a human being and not have to feel like a second-class citizen all the time.
Almost every day, someone leaves this city forever. Each time we come here to say farewell. Farewell to this city, the city of our past, of our glory and of our tragedy. Every day, there are fewer Jews left in Vilna. And soon it will be possible to say of the Jewish community in Vilnius that it used to exist.
There are many reasons to emigrate. One reason is fear. Perestroika was supposed to put an end to fear, but it doesn't. Above all, the Jews are filled with fear of physical violence. They're afraid of the return of the Kristallnacht, afraid of a night of the long knives.
Потому что евреи не хотят, чтобы повторилась там хрустальная ночь или там ночь вообще ножей.